Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and as always, it's great to have you guys here on this fine Tuesday. We got a lot to talk about on today's show, as we normally do, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. It makes you part of the show. Your comment gets highlighted in the broadcast. I address it, and it's a great way to interact, with myself, the host, and get yourself out there. Once again, it's the following link right there: streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip, and it's also on the ticker on the bottom of the first segment. So, with that, let's get right into what we're going to talk about. So, we'll obviously go through last night's game between the Lions and the Raiders. We'll talk about that. Then we will get into talking about the Cowboys, which I titled this episode, "The Cowboys Hype is Back." So, I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the Cowboys, and how they did on Sunday against the Rams. So, we'll get into that in the second part of the show. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about the NFC South and where that currently stands after this week. And then to close out the show, we'll talk about what happened to the Chiefs on Sunday, because I know I kind of glossed over it because I was going through the shows really fast. So I do want to talk about that at the end of the show. So that's basically the rundown for the show for today. And with that, let's get right into the first part of the show, which is talking about the Lions and the Raiders game from last night. So obviously there were some implications with that regarding my spread pool. I still had a chance to win the week. I just needed the score to be 52 and over, and that did not hit. So I ended up losing the week. I had the same amount of wins. I finished with 12 wins, but I finished with the same amount of wins as two other people, and they had the tiebreaker that was closer to the final score. So I did not win the week. So I have to wait another week. And the funny thing is, I tied with the two people that are in first place in that spread pool, and I'm like middle of the pack this year. But hey, listen, my predictions were solid this week. I shouldn't have picked the Packers. That was a terrible pick. The Ravens, I don't even get me started with that game, even though I talked about it yesterday. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. And then, I lost the Thursday night game, which should have won that if it wasn't for the backdoor cover by the Bills or by the Bucks. And then there was one more the Chiefs game, which actually we'll get into at the end of the show. So let's get into actually talking about this game. The Lions, they did what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to win this game. The Raiders are not very good, but it was close at one point. Jared Goff did throw a pick six, and at that point it was 16-14. This is in the second half. But ultimately the Lions were able to pull away, and they won the game by a few scores here. So let's actually go through with how this game all progressed. So the Lions, on their first drive of the game, they went 14 plays, 54 yards in over 7 minutes to kick a field goal. So they went up 3-0. Raiders punted on their first possession. Then the Lions fumbled. Josh Reynolds caught a pass, and then he lost the ball. And then on the very next play, Garoppolo threw it up to Davante Adams, who they're trying to get more involved in the offense. Obviously, he's been frustrated over the last couple of weeks with, his lack of involvement in the offense. And that got picked off in the end zone, so it didn't even matter. Then the Lions punted. Raiders turnover on downs. Lions then kicked the field goal, so it was 6-0 after the first quarter. Then in the second quarter, Raiders punted. Lions, 7 plays, 63 yards, kicked another field goal. So their first 3 scoring drives were all field goals. Then the Raiders put together a solid drive. That was the Josh Jacobs drive. They literally just kept running it with Josh Jacobs towards the end of that drive, and he ended up punching it in for a 3-yard touchdown. So the score was 9-7 at that point. Then on the Lions' possession, following that, they went 9 plays, 79 yards, and they got a touchdown. That was to Sam Laporta, the rookie tight end who's been great for the Lions this year. A great replacement for T.J. Hawkinson. And then the Raiders, took a knee to end the half. Well, actually, no, they ran it with Amir Abdullah, and then that was the end of the first half. Then, second half, Raiders punted. Lions, that was the pick 6 that I mentioned before. Then on their next possession, they were driving, and it looked like they were going to score a touchdown, and then they fumbled. They had to review it. Max Crosby knocked the ball out. Well, took the ball away from Craig Reynolds. And, but the Raiders weren't able to capitalize on that. They punted. Lions, on their next drive, scored a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs from 27 yards out. He had a big game last night. Then the Raiders punted. Lions kicked a field goal. And then there was no scoring in the fourth quarter. Turnover on downs, both drives for the Raiders in the quarter. Lions missed a field goal. A 26-yarder, which was crazy that happened. And then that was it. And the Lions ended up winning 26-24. To look at the overall stats, Jimmy Garoppolo actually leads the league in interceptions. He has 9, despite playing in, I think it was just 6 games, which is not good. He was not good yesterday. 10-21, 126 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Josh Jacobs, he had that one really good drive, but the Raiders only ran the ball in total for 80 yards. He had 61 yards on the ground for a touchdown. And he was actually their leading receiver. He had 27 yards receiving. There was several players that had 19 yards receiving. Austin Hooper, Renfro, Michael Mayer, Jacoby Myers. Amir Abdullah had 1 reception for 12 yards. And Devontae Adams had 1 for 11. The Raiders just could not get anything going offensively. And I just wanted to show Devontae Adams' numbers from like the last 3 games. So we'll look into that right now. So just give me 1 second here. Yeah, you look at these numbers and you're just like, how is this possible? These are his last 3 games. So you got, against the Patriots, he had 2 receptions for 29 yards. Then he had 7 for 57. He did drop a touchdown in that game last week. And then this week, one reception for 11 yards. Now, the trade deadline is today. Obviously, if anything happens throughout the day, I don't expect anything to happen at this moment. But in the event that something does, I will obviously, break the news to you guys, even though you guys probably get like the notification for it. But, I just wanted to show that it's not likely that Devontae Adams is going to get traded, but for me, I really hope he does, because, this offense is not good. It's just not good. They don't have the right quarterback. And I feel bad for Jimmy Garoppolo, because I feel like he's one of those quarterbacks that I said it last night to my friends. He's one of those quarterbacks that just naturally gets hit in the wrong places a lot. Last night there was a roughing the passer call. The Raiders were backed up in the end zone, and there was a late hit on Garoppolo, a low hit, up against his knee, and he was. Obviously he was able to finish the game, but he's dealing with a back injury, and he's had plenty of injuries. He had the foot injury last year. He just, and he's torn his ACL too. Let's not forget back in 2018. So he's dealt with a ton of injuries, and I just feel like he gets hit in the wrong places every single time. Against the Steelers, he basically got crunched up in that game, and that's what injured his back. I just feel bad. I feel bad for the guy. It's unfortunate that keeps happening to him. But again, Devontae Adams, he voiced his displeasure yesterday. He said he really has no answers. He said he didn't want to say anything that would get mixed up in the media. But yeah, it's been rough. This is a guy that went to the Raiders to play with his college teammate, and Derek Carr is no longer there, and it's a mess at the quarterback position right now. So if I was him, I would try to get out of there and go to a contender. But we'll see. But it doesn't look like the Raiders are going to move off of him. All right, so then we move on to the Lions stats. Jared Goff, 26-37, 272, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. The pick was bad, the pick 6. Marcus Peters was the one that picked it off and took it back. They ran the ball for over 200 yards, which, against the Raiders, who are, not very good against the run, that was expected. And that's exactly what happened. Jahmyr Gibbs had his coming out party, 26 carries, 152 yards, and a touchdown. And I went against him in one of my fantasy leagues, and I had Davante Adams. And I was down by 3 or 4 going into that matchup, going into the game last night. And, I ended up losing by like 30 because Jahmyr Gibbs had a heck of a game. He also had 5 receptions for 37 yards. Their leading receiver was obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 receptions, 108 yards. Sam Laporta had a good game, 8 receptions for 57 yards, targeted 10 times, and he had a touchdown as well. And the Lions get it done. And it looked bad at some points during the game, but, this is a game that they were supposed to win. They got themselves back on the right track. If they would have lost this game, there definitely would have been, the alarms going off of them being frauds. It's because at some point, like after the pick 6, you're like, what are they doing? And then they fumbled, but the Raiders just could not capitalize on anything. And the Lions defense, they did well last night. Albeit it was against a bad offense, but the Lions are the reason why this game, the pick 6 was why the Raiders were in this game. This game was closer than it should have been. I mean, the Lions were the better team. Raiders just could not do anything offensively last night. And Jimmy Garoppolo missed Davante Adams on that. I mean, it was literally a walk-in touchdown pretty much. Davante Adams put a good move on Cam Sutton, and Garoppolo just overthrew him. And that should have been a touchdown. So, things aren't looking good with the Raiders. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, if I was like anybody on offense, I would be like, get me out of here. Because it's a mess right now. And I was, watching TV right before I came on, and they were talking about Josh McDaniels. And I think he should be another one that, should be gone. He's 20-33. That's his record as a head coach. So that really tells you all you need to know. I mean, he was a head coach of the Broncos back in the day. He should go back to. I mean, I think if they get rid of him, he's going to go back to the Patriots and be their offensive coordinator. Well, they got Bill O'Brien there now, but I think he's got to be a coordinator or something because head coach is just not panning out for him. Ben Upson in the chat. Would you consider the Lions as real threats to the rest of the NFC? Yes, I absolutely do. The defense is getting better. It's been better. It's improved the last couple of seasons. Obviously, last week against the the Ravens, definitely, was concerning there just because they got blown out. The Ravens scored touchdowns on their first 4 possessions. They couldn't move the ball offensively. So obviously, the Lions, I think, are a team that needs to, have home field advantage, because I can't really see them going on the road against like Philly or San Francisco if they figure it out eventually and win. But if you got the Lions at home, they got a better shot. And I mean that goes for really all the teams the way things are right now. But I look at them as like the 3rd best team in the NFC. I know the 49ers are struggling, and you got the Seahawks now are in first place, but I don't think that's going to last. And I don't want to discredit Seattle because Seattle is a good team, and they also acquired Leonard Williams from the Giants yesterday. They traded away a 2nd and a 5th round pick for Leonard Williams, so that helps their defensive line. They also brought back Frank Clark, who I thought was going back to the Chiefs, but I guess that didn't work out. So he goes back to his other old team, the Seahawks. So they continue to beef up that defensive line. The Seahawks are a good team. I just think what's going to hold them back is obviously Geno Smith, who, listen, he has been good since taking over the starting quarterback role with the Seahawks. Obviously, them letting go of Russell Wilson, trading Russell Wilson. But I think that's what's going to hold them back. But right now, I would say you got the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Lions. Those are the top 3 teams in the NFC. I'm still going to hold out hope that the 49ers figure it out. They're too talented. But there's some concern there. There definitely is. All right, so with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about another team in the NFC, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. I'm talking about their hype returning after their win against the Rams. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Cowboys and their hype returning this past week, especially because of what's been going on in the NFC lately with how the 49ers have kind of just been falling apart as of late. Obviously, you got the Eagles, who are still, up there, of course. They're at 7-1. They got the best record in the NFC. But the Cowboys, after coming off of a bye week and then the previous week winning against the Chargers 20-17 in LA, they dominated against the Rams in this game from start to finish. I was paying close attention to that game, listening to the Cowboys radio broadcast, so I was able to listen to that game from start to finish this past weekend. And yeah, this game was, it was close at one point when they kicked off to start the game. But but in all seriousness, it was 7-3. So the Cowboys on their first drive, the penalties kind of helped them out, but they went 10 plays, 75 yards, and they got a touchdown to start the game. Dak Prescott connected with tight end Jake Ferguson. And then the Rams on their first drive, they went down the field, kicked a field goal. Cowboys then kicked a field goal. And then Matthew Stafford threw a pick six on their first play of their second possession. And then there was a safety. The Cowboys blocked a punt. So, yeah, not how you wanted to start a game for the Rams. And then from that point on, the Cowboys just dominated the game. Dak Prescott had a good game, 25-31, 340 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. They ran the ball for 102 yards. Tony Pollard only had 53 yards. I feel like next year he can have a better year. I just feel like he's still trying to work his way back from the injury he had last year against the 49ers in the playoffs. But we'll see if they make any moves to try to bring in another running back. So they ran the ball for 102 yards. But CeeDee Lamb, he's the one that had a spectacular game. 12 receptions for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brandon Cooks had a touchdown in this game as well. His second of the season. He had one against the Chargers a couple weeks ago. Ferguson had the touchdown, like I said. And the Cowboys, that was the game. And listen, the Rams were getting 6.5, then the line went up to 7. And I said, that's fishy, because I feel like I would take the points in this game. But I'm like, you know what? I've been doing very bad in the spreads. I'm going to keep the Cowboys, and they're good at home. Let's see what happens. And the Cowboys destroyed them. They really did. And, they at home, they've been great this year. They blew out the Jets. They blew out the Patriots. And now they blew out the Rams. Now they go into Philadelphia, which is a big game. That game and the Sunday night game are huge games. So we'll definitely talk about them later in the week, of course. But what do I look at with the Cowboys? How do I look at the Cowboys? Now, I think they're a good team. I think they will make the playoffs. But until they show me something, I'm going to take the stance of it's going to be the same thing that it always is every year. They're going to get to the playoffs, and odds are they probably get knocked out in the second round. Now, they got the defense. They got the receivers, obviously, CeeDee Lamb. Tony Pollard, I think, is still a good running back. I just think he's having a down year right now. And I kind of blame part of that for the injury. But I think ultimately what is going to hold this team back is their quarterback. Dak Prescott. I just don't look at him as a guy that's going to lead this team to where they're supposed to go. Now, I think he's a solid quarterback. I don't think he's bad by any means. I definitely think that it's hard to say that he's better than he was his rookie year. I think he is better in some aspects from his rookie season. What I think he's gone backwards in is turning the ball over. That's where it's been a problem. Because, his rookie season, he didn't turn the ball over that much. Now all of a sudden he's throwing more interceptions. And that's a problem. And I think that's going to affect them when they get to the playoffs and they try to, make a run at the Super Bowl. And I just think right now, I still put the 49ers over them, even though the 49ers I don't know what's going on with them right now. I put the Eagles over them still. And I put the Lions over them. So the Cowboys are probably 4. Well, between them and Seattle at the moment. I think I'd probably put the Cowboys over the Seahawks at the moment, but they're definitely close. Unless I'm missing anybody. Yeah, because honestly, I mean, I'm not taking anybody from the South. The way those teams have been playing this year and how inconsistent they've been. I would say those are probably your teams right there. You got the Eagles, you got the Niners, the Lions, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. Those are your teams right there in the NFC. So, now, how it currently stands, the Cowboys, they're coming off of a great week. The Niners aren't. But listen, I still think the Niners are going to get right. And they're going to be one of the top 2 teams in the NFC record-wise. Now, right now, I would say Philadelphia is the best team in the NFC at this moment. They're playing well. They rebounded from that bad loss against the Jets. And listen, they were down early against the Commanders, but they were able to come back and win that game. Because that's a team, for some reason, has given them a ton of problems. So, now, listen, the Cowboys, it's typical where, they come off this big win and now everybody's talking about, oh, man, they're back, right? Now, you look at who they beat at home this year. Now, the Jets are 4-3, but their offense is still not very good. So the Cowboys, that's a game you win. You dominated the Patriots, which you should have done because the Patriots are not very good. Although, they've looked somewhat better the last 2 weeks. But now another injury. Kendrick Bourne, their wide receiver, was actually having a good year. He tore his ACL, so now he's out. So that's a weapon that's gone now for Mac Jones. And now you beat the Rams. And, yeah, I guess the Rams just, they're not really that good. They last week they lost that bad game against the Steelers. I think they're a team that could make a wild card, but I don't know. I just feel like they're kind of they're on the downside right now with how they've been playing these last couple of weeks. Because you get Cooper Kupp back, you think okay, now this is where they're going to start clicking on offense. Right now they're kind of one-dimensional because, Karen Williams was having a really good season for them. He got hurt. He's on IR. So now you got Royce Freeman. You bring back Darrell Henderson. So running the football is a problem. Matthew Stafford, again, got hurt. So we'll see, what happens with that. Yeah, it's that's a game the Cowboys, they dominated, and you just look at the Rams and you're like, well, I guess the Rams really aren't that good. They kept it close with the Niners earlier in the year. They kept it close with the Eagles. Cowboys blew them out. So I don't know what the Rams are right now. I guess they're kind of just, they're like a middle of the pack team. Might win between like 6 and 8 games. You know, and now Stafford's hurt, so you don't know how long he's going to be out, if he's going to miss any time at all, but we'll see. But they do have the Packers on Sunday, so you would think they should win that, the way the Packers have been playing. Cowboys are good at home, though. What really, like, you know, even though they've beaten teams that they should beat, I mean, you know, they put up 30 points, 38 points, and now 43 points or 44 points. Yeah, 43 to 20. Yeah. They're good at home. But now you're going on the road against Philadelphia. This game will tell me a lot, because now you're going to have both starting quarterbacks playing against each other. You're going to have Dak going up against Jalen Hurts, and we did not see that at all last year. We saw Jalen Hurts against Cooper Rush, and then we saw Gardner Minshew against Dak Prescott in Dallas on Christmas Eve. So now we're going to see both of these teams going at it with their starting quarterbacks. Eagles are, looking good offensively. They've played well at home. We'll see what happens. If the Cowboys win on Sunday, then we can have a conversation. But if it's another one of those, you come off of a huge win, you're going in to Philly, and you lay a dud, it's going to be the same thing that it always is. Not going to be taken seriously. So this game on Sunday is really important. This is a statement game right here. And if Dak Prescott plays really well in this game, that's big for him too. That is big for him too. And it's going to be a tough game for both teams. I give the Cowboys a chance to win this game, although I'm not leaning towards picking them. But the Cowboys, they got the defense to keep it close. They're dealing with injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but you still got Micah Parsons, of course. And he can wreck a game. He could take it over at any time. And, the Cowboys, they got the wide receivers. The Eagles' secondaries have been a little suspect. I mean, they gave up almost 400 yards passing to Sam Howell. So Cowboys can move the ball against the Eagles' defense. They just got to go out and do it. But if they don't, I mean, I think if they lose on Sunday, I'm just saying it's going to be most likely because of their quarterback. Because, I mean, you look at the quarterbacks going into this game, I mean, most people are going to take Jalen Hurts over Dak. They just are. But we'll have to see. It's one of those. It's a big game on Sunday. It's one of the big games that I talked about. Obviously, we'll talk about it later. In the week. But I think, like, especially when the Cowboys come off of a win like this against the Rams, you're going to have people that are obviously going to, be like, oh, here we go, they're back. But I think it's different with this week just because of the 49ers, like, how they've been struggling. So now everybody's like, oh, well, that opens the door up for the Cowboys to be considered one of the best teams in the NFC. Now, they're a top 5 team in the NFC. Like I said, I'd probably put them at 4. I would put them over Seattle. But I'm not putting them ahead of the Lions. I'm still not putting them ahead of the Niners or the Eagles, obviously. But, we'll see. We'll see what they can do on Sunday. Like I said, we'll talk about it later in the week. But, yeah, of course, after a big win at home against the Rams, who don't look like a very good team right now, of course there's going to be hype. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it when talking about this segment. Let me know what you guys think, how the Cowboys stack up against the rest of the teams in the NFC, or any other thoughts you might have regarding this segment. So with that, we are going to take our second break of the show. But first, I want to remind you guys, when it comes to, becoming part of the show. So once again, I want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, it's a great way to become part of the show. It makes the show a lot better. It's the interaction between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. I highlight your comment during the live broadcast, and really, it's a great way to improve the broadcast and improve the show, make it more interactive, and that's really what this is all about: is interacting with you guys, the fans, of course, of the show. So yeah, the following link once again: streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip, and again, it's also on the ticker on the bottom of the segment. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we are then going to talk about the NFC South and where that currently stands after Week 8. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to now talk about our favorite division, or one of our favorite divisions in the NFL, and that is the NFC South, and where that is after Week 8. I have no idea who's going to win this division. I really don't. The Falcons losing on Sunday to the Titans. Will Levis making his NFL debut. They lost 28-23. Will Levis had 4 touchdowns in that game, 3 to DeAndre Hopkins, 1 to Westbrook-Ikhine. Desmond Ridder left the game. He was getting evaluated for a concussion. I think he was cleared, and then they didn't put him back in the game. They put Taylor Heineke in the game. And now Arthur Smith is not committing to any quarterback at the moment. I mean, there's going to be a decision at some point. But I would expect that Taylor Heineke is going to be the starting quarterback on Sunday when the Falcons take on the Vikings. Because I think Heineke can win you games. Right now, Desmond Ridder just has not looked like the guy. He continues to turn the ball over. And I went against the grain with that pick. I was like, listen, the Falcons, rookie quarterback, they should win this game, right? But I took the Titans at home, and they were wearing those awesome uniforms. I was like, how could you not take the Titans? And the Titans ended up winning the game. And the Falcons, they ended up, that was a brutal game they lost there. And listen, they are in good position to win the division. I mean, right now when you look at it, they're 4-4. The Saints now are 4-4. The Bucs are 3-4. And guess what? The Panthers, they just won their first game of the season against the Texans. So listen, if they could string together a couple of wins, before you know it, maybe they're in consideration for winning the division possibly. I still don't. It's a long shot, but I mean they're 2.5 games out. I mean they got to stack up some wins if they're going to have any chance. But right now you have the Falcons and the Saints at the top of the division. I have no idea. I don't trust any of these teams, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, the Bucs, they were 3-1, and then they've lost 3 in a row. The Saints, they did pick up a win against the Colts. They put up 38 on them, and they got the win. Kamara looks good since he's come back from his suspension. Michael Thomas has been good. He's been healthy. Chris Olave actually did play in this game. But I still don't trust them. I don't trust them. I don't trust the Falcons. I don't trust any of these teams, so I really have no idea. I mean, I guess at this point, right now you lean towards the Saints, I guess. I mean, I was saying you lean towards either the Saints or the Bucs. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on how Heineke does with the Falcons. Because the Falcons, their skill position players are really good. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. They got playmakers on that offensive side of the ball. They need the quarterback. Now, is Taylor Heineke, the answer? No, not the long-term answer, but you know what? I think Taylor Heineke, he gives you the better chance to win than Desmond Ridder. I think it's safe to say that. He's won games in the NFL. Obviously, he played in the playoff game against Tom Brady, and that was, he almost beat Tom Brady. Well, almost might be a little bit strong to say, but, I mean, it was a competitive game. It was. That was back in 2020. Empty stadium. And that was I think that was his first career start, like, ever. And, he played really well in that game. Actually, like, I think he was, like, the best quarterback statistics-wise going against that Bucs defense in the playoffs that year. Because then they went on and they beat Breeze, they beat Rodgers, they beat Mahomes. Well, Mahomes had the worst game of all of them. But I have to go back and look. But, yeah, I mean, give Taylor Heineke a chance. I mean, you got a chance at this division. And, Taylor Heineke with this supporting cast, I think he could do well. Now, I don't expect the Falcons to really do anything this year because I don't look at them or really any team in the South as, a legit Super Bowl contender. I don't. So I think, whoever makes the playoffs, I think they're going to be knocked out in the first round. But, as long as you got a chance to win the division, I mean, I think you gotta give Heineke a chance. Like I said, he gives you a better chance to win than the other quarterbacks that you have on your roster. Desmond Ridder. So if they do that, we'll see. I mean, they got a game against the Vikings, and the Vikings are going to be missing Kirk Cousins, who's obviously going to be out the rest of the year with the torn Achilles. That was made official yesterday. So just terrible. Injuries have just been awful. They've ruined the season. And, it was kind of upsetting, seeing, all of these, goodbye Kirk Cousins videos on TikTok. This is it for him. Is it really like that? Like, that's it? They're just, I mean, I know it's a significant injury, but, I mean, you would think the Vikings maybe want to bring him back, but I don't know. I guess because, of the type of injury that he has, and, I guess they don't want to be the ones to pay. I don't know. But he was having a great year. And now the Vikings, we'll see. Maybe they trade for a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill, his name has been floated around. Jameis Winston, maybe. Obviously, he's backing up the one of the backups for the Saints. But yeah, I mean, back to the original point. NFC South. I mean, who wants it? Really, like who wants to win this division? Seriously. I have no idea. I have no idea. Maybe the Panthers come out of nowhere and they say, "Hey, we'll take it." They picked up their first win. I mean, they did win like a very low-scoring game. Final score ended up being 15-13. But you know what? A win is a win. A win is a win. No matter how ugly it is. I mean, we saw some ugly football on Sunday, especially for the Jets and Giants fans out there. Yeah. So you take whatever you can get. But, yeah, with this division, I mean, let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think is going to win this division? I mean, we're going to have this conversation every single week. I mean, what happens on Sunday, then we'll talk about it next week. But this season especially, it's a week-to-week thing. You have no idea who is going to win this division. I mean, it's going to be different. I mean, the Bucs, they were 3-1. It looked like it was going to be them. Now, all of a sudden, the Falcons, they picked up that huge win against the Bucs last week. That it looked like, I mean, the Saints haven't looked good. Maybe it's them. The Falcons. Now the Falcons lose to a rookie quarterback. Saints pick up a win. Now they're both tied at 4-4. So, I mean, it's might come down to the last week of the season, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you look at the Saints. To me, the Saints should be the team that wins the division. Because I think, like, they have the best quarterback out of those three teams. I would say Derek Carr is probably better than Baker Mayfield, slightly. He's kind of been disappointing the last couple of seasons. You got Alvin Kamara. You have Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, productive wide receivers. Rashid Shaheed is an underrated player. I mean, he had a great game too on Sunday. Um, what was his stat line from Sunday? Let's take a look. I know I went over it yesterday, but he had 3 receptions for 153 yards and a touchdown. And then another thing too, Taysom Hill, the Swiss Army knife. He had two more rushing touchdowns in this game. So I mean the Saints have a good offense on paper. It's just they've been I mean I don't know what's going on with them. I mean I don't think they have the right head coach. There's been a lot of complaints on social media about the play calling. I mean, obviously checking down to Alvin Kamara a lot is not going to win you games. Although Kamara is an explosive player, but obviously he's not. He's now he got his rookie season was a long time ago. It was 2017. I mean he's getting older too, even though I mean I'm saying that and he's 28, 27, 28 years old. But again, running backs you age quicker. So that's why I'm saying that. Even though he's 5-6 years older than me. So well 4 or 5. But yeah, I mean you got to at least like what you saw from Sunday. I mean, yeah, put the ball in your playmakers' hands. I mean, Taysom Hill, continue to implement him into your offense. Kamara, he continues to do his thing. And, you continue to develop your rapport with your receivers. I mean, if they could get on the same page, Derek Carr and his receivers, the Saints can definitely be the team that wins it. But, I don't know. They got to show us more. I mean, now you got a game coming up against the Bears. Bajan, I think, is going to be the starter again. I think the Saints should win that game. There's no reason they shouldn't lose that game. They shouldn't win that game. That's a game they should win. But we'll see. The Bucs, they'll be taking on the Texans. The Panthers will be taking on the Colts. And the Falcons, they will be taking on the Vikings. So we'll see what happens after this, after Week 9, where the teams are once again. But, I mean, right now, I have no idea. I have no clue who's going to win this division. It's really hard to predict. But we'll see. I mean, it's a fascinating thing to talk about because you really just don't know. And I think what would be hilarious is if the Panthers just come out of nowhere and they, get themselves involved in the conversation. But I think that's asking for a little bit too much. So, but once again, let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think is going to take this division? Because somebody's got to win it. Somebody has to. But it seems like week to week we're playing hot potato on, you take the division. No, you take the division. It's. But like I keep saying, this year especially, the NFL is a week to week thing. You have no idea who's good and no idea. And you just have no clue. Any team could be beat. You see that. Ben just said in the chat, Falcons win the NFC South with a favorable schedule and a decent defense. Ritter is the question mark. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to is the quarterback position. You get good quarterback play, you might have to take the Falcons. If the Saints, if they could build off of this win, you could give an argument for them. The Bucs, they were 3-1 at one point. You figure they're gonna. They had. I know when I looked at their schedule, they had a lot of winnable games there too. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. So with that, we are going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and what happened to them on Sunday. And is this something to be worried about, or is this just, just one of those games that they just, to forget about? So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and what on earth happened on Sunday. I know I touched upon it yesterday doing the recaps of every game, but I just wanted to, devote a segment to this because, I mean, what happened to the Chiefs losing to the Broncos? What's going on? What happened in that game? And I mean, for me, I think it's just one of those games. They just, they've had these games in the past, and I did mention that yesterday. I mean, you could tell from start to finish, as that game progressed, that the Chiefs just weren't going to win. Every time they tried to they were getting something going, they would turn the ball over. I think they turned the ball over 5 times. Mahomes did not look good in this game. He threw a couple of picks. I think he fumbled in this game. McCole Hardman muffed a punt. I mean, we'll go through it just to double check here, but it was just a mess of a game. Russell Wilson, I mean, he threw 3 touchdowns in this game, but that's because he had short field. I mean, he only had 114 yards passing. So Mahomes had 2 picks in the game. So there was a fumble. Yeah, so Valdez-Scantling fumbled. Then Mahomes threw a pick. Then there was another fumble. He lost the ball. It was on a sack. And then actually the Broncos fumbled on their possession. It was 14-9 at one point. That's what it was going into the half. So you thought, okay, the Chiefs still have a chance in this game, but then there was no scoring in the third quarter. And then the Broncos they outscored the Chiefs 10-0 in the second. Well, yeah, they outscored the Chiefs 10-0 in the second half. Chiefs didn't do anything in the second half. But that's one of the things you got to worry about with the Chiefs, though, is just there are games where they look like a mess, and this was one of them. Now, I think ultimately when all the chips are on the table, you're not going to bet against them. And listen, like I've been saying constantly, every team it just looks like can be beat. There's no team that you just have no idea what team you're going to get from week to week. And, people are pointing at Mahomes, he was coming off of the flu, so that had to have some impact, the weather and all that. But, this is a team that, you beat yourselves. They did. They beat themselves in this game with the turnovers. If you don't turn the ball over, or at least, you don't turn the ball over in some of those, you have less than the amount of turnovers you had, you probably win that game. But that was not the case. I think the Chiefs, they're another team where you got to look at them and say they're going to be fine. Because they've had this happen to them before. They won the Super Bowl last year. Do I expect them to win this year? No. But they do look like, to me, up until, of course, this week. And actually, I'd probably still say, as of right now, I still think they're the best team in the AFC right now. But, this game didn't do them any favors. And some teams that are starting to, find their groove, like the Bengals especially. Right now, you put the Bengals and the Chiefs against each other. Kind of got to like the Bengals in the game. I think the Chiefs will be okay. But I think they got to go out and get another receiver. Because the receivers right now that they have aren't really doing it. You brought McCole Hardman back, and already he's fumbled. He fumbled on Sunday. He gave the Broncos great field position, deep in the Chiefs' territory. The funny thing is everyone's like, oh, Taylor Swift wasn't there. That's why they weren't doing good. I was disappointed, though, that we didn't see any snow on the ground. It did snow, but they cleared it all off. It was just one of those games. They just really, they couldn't get anything going. Sky Moore, he dropped a touchdown in this game. Nothing went right for the Chiefs. Nothing went right. So I mean, now they play in Germany against the Dolphins. So I think that they will. That's another big game on Sunday. Dolphins Chiefs. Those are the top two teams record wise in the AFC. And I think, well, actually, also the Ravens are up there too. Let's take a look at that really quickly, because I think, oh yeah, and the Jags also are 6-2. So you got 4 6-2 teams right now. Yeah, so right now it's anybody's home field advantage is anyone's game right now at the moment. But that's crazy. So that game is really important. So apparently there were trades that went down. Let's see if I can. So the Bears traded for Commanders defensive lineman Montez Sweat. They traded his second round pick for him. And I know my friends are talking about it in the chat because it's like, I mean, the Bears aren't going anywhere. So why would they do that? I don't know. But I mean, they're 2-6. Fields is hurt. But I don't know. That's interesting. That's interesting that happened. So there's a trade right there that's gone down. Yeah, it's just weird because the Bears right now they're not in position to do anything. I don't know. I guess it's just somebody they could get to, go into next year with. I don't know what to say about that. But back to the Chiefs topic. Yeah, you got 4 6-2 teams. So right now it's anybody for the number 1 seed. But that makes Sunday's game even more important for the Chiefs and the Dolphins because, if you lose, then you could find yourself being the 4 seed. So we'll see. That's a game I'm looking forward to. Obviously, the Ravens and the Jags, they play each other later in the year. The Chiefs and the Jags already played each other. But the Jags look like a different team. They're still they're finding their groove, especially defensively. Their defense has been playing a lot better. Offensively, they're getting it going, but, you want to see more. Obviously, they played in bad weather on Sunday against the Steelers. Ben said Chiefs need to shake it off. Yeah. There were a lot of blank spaces after the game on Sunday. I'm sorry, I can't get over the Iron Eagle call in Week 2 against the Jags when Kelsey scored the touchdown. I know people are getting annoyed with all the Taylor Swift stuff. I get it. Believe me, I'm with you on that. But I just thought that was just a funny call. But yeah, listen, I'm not worried about the Chiefs. I think they're going to figure it. I think they'll be fine. But they should go out and try to get another receiver. You should. And you have most of the receivers from last year. You have Valdez-Scantling. You have Tony, who hasn't been good. You have Sky Moore. You have Justin Watson. Now Hardman's back, so I guess he technically counts. The only one that's not back is Juju Smith-Schuster. That's it. And they could maybe use him. Because he wasn't bad for them last year. Rashee Rice, though, has been good, though. He's been better, getting more involved in the offense. Right now, he's their leading receiver. So, and of course you have Kelsey. Obviously, arguably the greatest tight end of all time. Although, I think for me, I'd probably still put Gronk over him. But they're two different types of kinds of tight ends. You take Kelsey in terms of, his speed and agility and his route running. But Gronk just, he would bulldoze over people, and, he's a blocking tight end too, and the guy was just unbelievable. I think you still got to put him, but, if not, they're 1A and 1B. Because, they're easily the best tight ends I've seen in my lifetime. I'm only 23. So I would look at them and say those are probably the best two that I've seen. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, for the Chiefs, I mean, yeah, that was just a bad game. But on social media, obviously people are going to say the Chiefs don't get any criticism. Other guys are going to get more criticism if they have bad games. Mahomes had a bad game. Yeah, he did. But I think, you should take the stance of if you're playing, there's no excuse. And he did say, I'm pretty sure he said he felt a lot better going into this game, coming off of the flu. So, but I will say this was kind of a team loss because you had guys fumbling, punts, and Valdez-Scantling fumbled. Mahomes had 3 turnovers, don't get me wrong, but there were other turnovers in this game, so, it's not just, this loss isn't just on one guy, even though he's, one of the main reasons they lost this game. He's got to play better. And also, the play calling has kind of been called into question as well, because now Eric Bieniemy is no longer there. He's with the Commanders. And, that's something that people have been talking about as well. So, I mean, we're just going to have to wait and see. We're at the halfway point in the season. Trade deadline is today. So we'll see what the Chiefs can do. Can they go in and maybe get a receiver? Devontae Adams. Imagine that. Mahomes and Devontae Adams. Get him a receiver. I mean, listen, they won the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. I mean, you don't have to get Mahomes like a superstar, but get him a receiver that can catch the ball. A productive receiver. Because, listen, they won the Super Bowl with Juju Smith-Schuster as the number 1 wide receiver. And I thought Juju was good last year for them. So if you get a receiver like that can catch the ball, not fumble, I think that's all they need. I don't think you need to go out and get a Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think you need to do that. Now, would that be beneficial? Absolutely. I mean, if you have the chance to do it, you go out and do it. But I don't think the Chiefs need to go crazy. I think you get a receiver that is a dependable receiver that Mahomes can build a chemistry with, and then you take it from there. Because you have Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is your number 1 receiver, essentially. But you need somebody that, because these group of receivers that they have right now, some of them just aren't it. I mean, last year they traded for Kadarius Toney. How has that worked out? It's been awful. I mean, he had the touchdown in the Super Bowl. He had the punt return. So you thought, hey, maybe this is the year that he's going to break out. And it's been far from that. And I traded for him in a Dynasty League, and he has been... It hasn't been good. It hasn't been good. So we'll see. And, obviously throughout the day, if there's any breaking news, I'll make sure to, address it in a short that I might do. So check out for the shorts that I come out with later today. If in case anything massive happens at the trade deadline. So we'll see. But, that's pretty much it for the show today. I thank you guys for tuning in, of course. I'll be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Obviously, Friday is the doubleheader. You got the football podcast and then the baseball podcast shortly after that. So make sure to tune into both of those. Obviously, like I said, I'll be coming out with some shorts later in the day, so make sure to look out for them as well. And, of course, I'll be getting yesterday's show reposted into the 4 parts. So if you missed anything from yesterday, the live stream is up. But, of course, to make things easier, you'll have the segment broken down into the 4 parts. So for anything you missed, you can check that out. Watch out for that. Those will also be up on both YouTube channels. So with that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, I thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Make sure to tune in for that. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.